what's up and welcome back to my channel. Now today I'm going to be giving a review for the film Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Now this is another reboot of the Resident Evil film franchise, which of course is based on a video game series known as Resident Evil, you can say Biohazard. And the Resident Evil video game series is my all-time favorite video game series. So I have always been a fan. Now I must admit the previous films, they kind of they were pretty good, pretty decent. And they starred Milla Jovovich and all of them, but they were too close to the game. They actually went their own way. Even Alex, the character that Milla Jovovich played, wasn't from the video games. They always went their own way with the story, but they did bring in a few characters from out the video games, in those previous films, some of the events and so on that happened in the games. But this particular film, Welcome to Raccoon City, this new Resident Evil film, which I'm reviewing right now, I must admit, this got to be it's not a real good film, but it's got to be one of the best film adaptations of a video game franchise I have ever seen. The look of it, the characters, the way it feels, the mood of it too, as well as just very close to how the video games themselves are. Now this is directed by Johannes Roberts, and of course he directed other films like 47 Meters Down, The Strangest Prayer at Night. I saw those films, so I'm kind of familiar with his work. But this film, like I was saying, now the actual bulk of the story itself, it kind of is adapting the first two Resident Evil video games, Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2, which kind of took place months apart, and they took place back in 1998. Also, they were in Raccoon City too, because you had the Spencer Mansion, or you could say the mansion itself, and at the Raccoon Police Department, the police station, which was in part 2. So you have both of them stories kind of going on at the same time. It's kind of cool. Now, it didn't exactly happen that way, but it was true to how that was. These events really did happen in the games. They was just kind of months apart. And then you have various characters Claire Redfield, Chris Redfield, because they're brother and sister. Then you have Leon S. Kennedy. Now it does seem they put a lot of focus on Leon. They always say Leon and so on, because he's the rookie police officer who's showed up on his first day of work, and then suddenly this zombie outbreak happens. And it's a lot of humor in the film, but it does seem the way they actually are portraying the film, the protagonist of the film seems it's really Claire Redfield, because you kind of get a backstory about her character, where she was a child, in the orphanage and so on. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and I always knew that she was Chris's sister. But the way they look and so on, I think it's done very well. The way Claire Redfield looks, because the woman that plays her, I think is known as Kaya or Kaya Scodelario. I can't really pronounce it, but she I think the way she portrays Claire seems very close to how Claire is in the video games. Even her kind of clothes that she wear, they're kind of similar to what she wears in the games. I think most of Resident Evil Revelations, but just her look the red and so on. Then even Chris himself, Chris Redfield, her brother, he's played by Robbie Amell. And he does kind of resemble how Chris actually looks in the game, because eventually, that Chris had bulk up, got muscular looking, in the later games. But the one character that kind of stood out that didn't really fit, for my opinion, was the one that plays Leon S. Kennedy, and he is known as Ivan Jorgia. He looks he's very Hispanic or Latino, and Leon doesn't look like that in the actual video games. He's a Caucasian American with kind of blondish type hair. So I thought his character was off at the look of him, Now you also have Wesker in the story too. I kind of like what they did with his character, because in the games he's actually the main villains of the Resident Evil video game franchise. But in this particular film, they kind of have him in a light where he's kind of good, but then he just turned bad. I just leave it at that. I don't want to get into it too much. They also have Jill Valentine here. She's played by Hannah John Kaman. So I think that's pretty cool, because Jill and Chris are part of the Stars team, along with Wesker too. Oh yeah, and Wesker is played by Tom Harper. You also have William Birkin in the story too. I thought that was kind of cool, because he's from Resident Evil 2, and he actually did mutate into his form that's very similar to how he looks on the game, the big eyeball and so on. So I thought that was kind of cool. He also has a daughter Sherry Birkin too, and William Birkin is played by Neil McDonough. Now there's some other characters I want to touch on, Lisa Trevor. She was actually in there too as well. I think she actually made her first appearance, as far as the Resident Evil games go. I think in the remake, if I'm not mistaken. One of the characters that showed up, I was kind of surprised to see that particular character showed. I thought that was cool, because there's no question the film is leaving doors open for a sequel, a follow-up. because if you watch like the end credits, it's actually like two of them. Like if you watch it right as it's going off, they show like a glimpse of something, you know, that you can tell they're planning for like the sequel. Like it's it's evolving these characters. But then it's like another one, I think, when it's actually like going off. I think it was like one more, if I'm not mistaken. I know it was at least one of them though, so you have to actually watch the credits to see these particular like characters show. Like, whoa, they're finna bring them in there. I thought that was kind of cool and awesome. But like the book itself, like the plot of the film itself, it's set in 1998. And like Raccoon City. Now in this particular story, like Raccoon City itself, and it was actually kind of cool getting to look at how Raccoon City would look like live action, like the one that's really based on the game. Apparently, like most of the people that's living in this town is run by like Umbrella, the pharmaceutical company. They're like evacuated, so the town of Raccoon City is like a ghost town. So it's most like a military type people, and I think people who are involved like Umbrella and so on. And like this zombie outbreak begins to happen right here in that small little town. So I thought that was kind of interesting and different. I thought Raccoon City, I knew it was like a small like town, but I thought it'd be like much more like community based. Because you do see like houses and all that, it's like area and all that. But I thought it was like much more like populated with like regular people. But like a lot of the scenes that come from the games, like the truck driver turning into a zombie, then he crashing and all that was really awesome. Like the dogs, the zombies, and so the look of like the police station and everything like that, like their clothes, like I say, the way like the scenario went, like you had Chris taking like a bunch of zombies, like shooting them up, like in the Spencer mentioned, all that really was done very well, I must admit. It was very true to that kind of game, except actually like the liquors, like the creatures with the tongue, all that, the crows, like the bird-like things, all that. I don't want to get into it too much. But it does feel like it was like too long, it seemed like it. And it does kind of drag at times. And it does still feel like the story just didn't conclude. Like something was kind of like off about it. It was like it was just really something that didn't go well, right? Click right with the actual story itself. But you could tell they're leaving it open for a sequel, you know. So that's probably what they're trying to do. Like stuff seemed like it wasn't finished. But in the end, I'm giving Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Like I said, it's got to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, like true like video game adaptations I ever seen. Like the film itself, I still think it's kind of like this great or okay, you know. But like the actual like look, the feel, the characters, like how the scenarios, the scenes is really close to how the video game is done, you know. And I am glad they did. And I heard Johannes Roberts was like a fan of the video game series. That's why he stayed like true to how it is. That really does like touch me how close it is to like the games, you know. So I'm giving this a B minus, and I would definitely recommend for like fans for like the Resident Evil like video game franchise. I would definitely recommend it for that crew because it really is close to how the video games actually are. So I would definitely recommend watching this if you're a fan of those. But anyway, please leave a comment and subscribe too as well.